The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Stress Management, Real Tools for Work and Life Balance, presented by our sponsor, Heffernan. We're so happy you can join us. My name is Amanda Ramatar, and I will be your moderator today, and I will also be monitoring questions you may have during this session. Before we open up the session, let's review a couple of key items. All of the webinar materials we discuss can be found at the URL currently showing on your screen. I will be sharing this URL in a follow-up email, so don't feel like you need to write it down right now. If you have trouble with your internet connection during the webinar, we recommend leaving the presentation and logging back in. We do not control the audio, your devices control the audio, so if you have audio difficulties, try adjusting the volume settings on your device. If a telephone line goes dead during the call, hang up and call back again to the same number. If all lines go dead, watch the on-screen chat box for an alternative call-in number. Feel free to ask questions or provide feedback by using the chat box or questions box during the webinar. If you are using a tablet, you may need to tap on the screen for the options bar to appear, then you can select the appropriate option. We may not respond immediately, but we will work your questions or feedback into the presentation. If we can't get to your comment or question during the session, we will be online afterwards to respond, or we may follow up in an email if we run completely out of time. You may also email us at moderator@aspenrmg.com for up to 48 hours after the webinar. This will be a 1-hour presentation. Questions and comments are very much encouraged throughout, and the presenters will be answering questions at the end. And lastly, we have a number of upcoming webinars covering a variety of topics, including those listed at the Heffernan webinar website. In addition, we offer the mandatory preventing harassment training in English 3 times a year. With that, let's begin today's webinar, Stress Management, Real Tools for Work and Life Balance. Our presenter today is Dr. Steve Albrecht. Dr. Albrecht is a trainer, author, and consultant specializing in complex HR issues and security concerns. He holds a doctorate in business administration, an MA in security management, a BS in psychology, and a BA in English. He is board certified in HR, security management, employee coaching, and threat management. He has written 24 books on business, service, leadership, security, and criminal justice subjects. Thank you for being with us today, Dr. Albrecht.
Thanks, Amanda. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for your time and attention today. For the first time in several weeks, I'm now talking about a subject I like to talk about, stress management, because it's about wellness and about you feeling better about your personal and professional life. For the last couple of weeks, I've been talking too much about workplace violence, which is my main training subject, which I've been working on since 1992. Part of my work in workplace violence prevention is also about employee wellness, and some of the things we'll talk about here will make sense to you as employee wellness conversations. Think about what you can do in your organization to help yourself, what you can do to help your colleagues, and what hopefully your organization may be able to do for you in terms of some wellness support and tools and things like that. We're seeing a lot more of that these days, and especially as we return back to work from the pandemic. Things like gym memberships and things like catered lunches every once in a while, and break rooms where you can go in and take a nap, and sabbaticals, and all things are now being discussed as ways to get employees to come back in and feel better about working at the pace that they need to work at to catch up in the world after the pandemic. So I appreciate your time and attention on this for the quick hour. Also want to thank everybody, the good folks at Heffernan Insurance, and also the good folks at Aspen Risk Management. I've had a long collaboration, a collegial relationship with both organizations for a long time, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you here today. I'm at stevealbrecht.com, drstevealbrecht.com, and I'm also at Dr. Steve Albrecht on Twitter if you want to take a look there. Most of my Twitter stuff is about things that I like, which is baseball and pugs and kind of positive things, life in general, and some security and service stuff as well. When we talk about stress management as a topic for this conversation, I kind of have some good genetic background here. In 1974, when I was about 8 years old, my dad wrote a book called Stress and the Manager, which was one of the first books, business books on stress management that came out back in the 70s. And Stress and the Manager was all about workplace stress, and something that was not even considered or really talked about back then. In those days, it was suck it up, have a couple of cocktails when you got home and see you tomorrow. Now we look at stress management as a personal and professional issue for you, so that you feel good at home and you feel good at work while you're doing the things that you're being paid to do. And under the circumstances where we have so much crossover now, where people are working from home and people are doing work after hours on their phones and tablets and whatnot. And there just feels like we're now in as one of my colleagues suggested, one of my clinical colleagues suggested, we're no longer in a 24/7 world, we're in a 72/7 world, which means the pace of life just seems 1,000 miles an hour for everybody. The pandemic has made it no better. The current economy has made it tough on everybody as well. We've all got personal and professional stressors. You may have a lot of things going on in your personal life, health of your parents, health of your kids, your relationship, your finances, things like that. And then, certainly crossover to work, the amount of work, the pace of work, deadlines, and the quality of work that you have to do, the amount of interactions you have with everybody. It's stressful. And so we're going to talk about some tools for your toolkit. And I want you to take what we talk about here today as tools for your toolkit personally and professionally, and to be as open-minded as possible about the concepts we are discussing, to say this is not only career support for you, but life support for you. Stress management, especially some of the things we're going to talk about related to wellness and mindfulness, especially some of the stuff that you've seen now that's related to mindfulness meditation and breathing work and things like that, is part of our conversation, because it's life-changing. I've been a meditator for 30 years. I imagine how angry I would be in life if I was not a meditator. I imagine how much worse some of the traumas that I've been exposed to in my life would be if I was not a meditator. I look at the meditation process as my little break each day. I try to do 20 minutes, 10 minutes sometimes is all I can do. Half hour is even better. I did it this morning when I was still laying in bed. When I think about mindfulness meditation, it's not about shaving your head and moving to Tibet and wearing the orange robes. It is about taking a time to do what every single IT person that you've ever met in your entire life tells you when you're having IT problems, whether it's your phone, your laptop, your tablet, your PC. What do they always say? Reboot. Reboot, right? Press the start again button. I look at breath-based meditation, mindfulness, this idea that's come out from some thought leaders like John Kabat-Zinn or Andy Puddicombe from the phone app Headspace, people like that. Dan Harris we'll talk about from 10% Happier, as just a way to say, I'm going to reboot. If I can find 10 minutes in my day, 20 minutes in my day would be perfect to reboot the mechanism, which is me. Find a safe, quiet place to just sit someplace quietly and focus on one thing and one thing only, and that is just your breathing for about 10 minutes and then go back to work. What happens is you get into what's called the alpha state. The alpha state is half awake, half asleep. You're there, you're aware, but you don't care. I should write that down. You're aware, you're there, but you don't care. And the idea that the mindfulness state is where you can kind of reboot, and also you become a little bit, when you get back to work, a little bit more creative, maybe a little bit more patient with yourself and others, maybe a little bit more empathic with yourself, starting with yourself and others. And the idea that you've rejuvenated in a quick sort of way without having to sleep. And we are a sleep-deprived culture. We'll talk about sleep. We're an exercise-deprived culture. We have lots of opportunities, but we don't always do it. We'll talk about that. We are diet challenged in our culture. These things relate to stress as well, as you well know. Think about the pandemic 15 that you may have gained. When you look at our comfort foods during the pandemic and even recently, it's all the fun stuff: fats, sugar, alcohol, flour, carbs, all the fun stuff. Then you look at attitude, which is part of our conversation. We're going to look at breathing, which is part of our discussion here as well, and then this relaxation state that you can find yourself in. So we'll do a little exercise at the end just to give you a sense of how that relaxation state looks. So quick hour together. Take what you need from me in the slides and pull out those things which you actually want to start applying. So here's an example of stress. This is a Southwest Airlines flight. This is about, I think, 4 years ago, December. They had a fatality on this flight. Over in the right-hand corner, a woman was struck by a piece of shrapnel that came from the engine as the flight was going somewhere to somewhere. The engine exploded, and the piece of shrapnel came to the window. She was sitting on the window seat on the wing side, and it hit her and killed her. Southwest Airlines has not had, and this is why I fly them a lot, a fatality in the air before or since. They've had one fatality on the ground and one in the air in their entire history. They've never crashed a Southwest Airlines plane. When you look at everybody in the photograph here, under the stress of a dive from 35,000 feet down to 6,000 or 7,000 feet, where oxygen is no longer necessary, they all have their masks on wrong. It's over your nose and mouth and breathe normally if you've sat through the training security exercise that the flight attendants give you that I've done, I've sat through since I was 8 years old. And when you look, everybody here has their masks on wrong in a stressful situation. Now, how folks manage to take a lot of selfies, and then the guy with the beard here that's listening to his tunes on the right-hand side while the pilot is trying to explain what's going on has, a little bit of distraction going on. So when I look at photographs like this, I'm reminded that how we respond under stress is how we have been trained, how we have been educated, how we've been reminded, how we've been told to do certain things, especially in an emergency. In our life, when you think about what you have absorbed, what you can remember, it's oftentimes comes in a peaceful environment that you can apply it under a stressful environment. It's hard, as people who've been through military boot camps can attest to, it's hard to know what to do when you're being screamed at. When you look at how we absorb information and we take things that can be useful for our personal toolkits through this conversation here, I want to have an easy conversation about a tough subject, which is stress. So this is a picture of a fractal, F-R-A-C-T-A-L, a fractal. Fractals, it has been discovered through research, and I think it was done in Germany, and I'm German, so it must be true, right? If we look at research here, it says that looking at fractals actually lowers your stress. We see fractals in nature, snowflakes, leaves, patterns that you see, spider webs, things like that. Lots of fractals in nature. Crystals are probably the most common. We see fractals as being made by computers. Animation is full of fractals. You look at things that are pleasant and beautiful and peaceful and have repetitive patterns in them like this. Not stuff that's like optical illusions that are designed to trick you, but just things that are designed to make you relax. Lots of things that we see in nature create fractals, patterns and things that we can see when we look through the trees, or we look out at a sunset or across a lake or something like that that's pleasant and beautiful, lowers our stress. We look at things in life which can be horrific, school shootings and car accidents and crime and violence and war and all the things that are happening around our world these days, and it's hard to feel good about the world that we're living in. This little moment, this little break, and I'm big on little breaks, to find something pleasant in life and in nature to look at. So this is your first homework assignment. Go to Google, go to your phone, look at a collection of fractals that you can find, and print one out and make it a screensaver. Print one out and save it as an image on your phone. Look at it from time to time. That's your first homework assignment, fractals. When we think about our subconscious mind, it stores everything, positive or negative, it stores everything. If I asked you to think of your 8th grade locker combination in junior high school, you probably couldn't do it, but some of you might, right? If I asked you to think about your parents' home telephone number back in the day when we had landlines, you could probably think of your parents' home telephone number, right? Everything that we are exposed to in life, we store. Now, here's the good news. We store lots of fun, positive stuff, memories, events, and the bad news, of course, we store lots of bad things as well, stuff that we've been exposed to, and we call that trauma. Everybody that I've ever met and everybody you've ever met has had some sort of trauma in their life, ranging from a little bit to a lot. I know some people have had lots of trauma in their life, abuse and death and things around them, and I know people have had a little bit, but we've all had it. So when we look at what we carry around, that Samsonite we carry around, everybody's got something going on, and these days, it seems like more than ever. Part of our function in this conversation here is self-care. Self-care is so important to your continued long-term health. We know that stress management tools We know that mindfulness meditation and breathing exercises and things like that can actually contribute to the length and health of your life. It's not a cancer fighter, but all the things that we've seen in terms of the medical research, going back as far as the 70s, when my dad's book came out, is that stress management has a definite impact on the toxins, both physical, chemical, and psychological toxins that we're exposed to all day long. Find moments, and this is the key of our conversation here, find little moments every day to feel better about the world, feel better about yourself, feel better about your relationships by focusing, and this is where we're going to spend a lot of our conversation, on what's good in the particular moment that you're in. This is what the Zen Buddhists call focusing on that one moment in actual time, which is right now. And so if you listen to folks like Jon Kabat-Zinn, Z-I-N-N, Jon Kabat-Zinn is one of the founders of mindfulness-based meditation, and he created a project at Harvard Medical School and in Massachusetts for people that are going through cancer and life-altering, life-changing, fatal diseases to help them manage their stress and their families' stress through those time periods, starting back as long as the 70s. We're able to look at MRIs. We're able to look at CAT scans, we're able to look at CT scans and see that people who practice mindfulness meditation and breath control can actually change the way they think and actually grow what's called neuroplasticity, grow their brains. Everybody seems to think that your brain cells die every single day. Maybe true, certainly true anatomically, but we also have the capacity to grow our brains by exposing ourselves to new information, to new challenges, and to this idea of finding moments in your life to focus on the positive. And here's one of the things we're going to really bear down is the idea that everything in life has a good side and a bad side. Everything has a positive thing to look at or a negative thing to look at. What we struggle with as a culture, especially in the United States, is what's called the monkey mind. The monkey mind is the chatter that we hear all day long in our heads. It's emails, it's meetings, it's phone calls, it's messages, it's texts, it's kids, it's parents, it's spouse, partner, boss, co-workers, taxpayers, customers, clients, people that you have to deal with. That's all part of the monkey mind. The monkey mind is chatter, and it feels like we never get a handle on it. One of the hardest things for people to do when they start out with relaxation exercises is to say, this isn't working, this is stupid. My thoughts are intrusive and I can't control them. Excuse me. The answer is yes, you can. It just takes practice. When you look at the monkey mind, it is intrusive. It gives you lots of things to think about when you're trying to sleep, which we need, which is restorative, not a good time to think about all your life issues when you're trying to sleep. It gives you lots of distractions when you're trying to be creative. It gives you lots of distractions, the monkey mind, when you're trying to be empathic towards yourself or other people. The monkey mind is judgmental. It says, you suck, this is stupid, you're never going to amount to anything. It gives us negative self-talk. Part of our conversation for stress management is to reprogram positive self-talk into the things that you're doing. And I'll give you an example. I have been around people in my coaching practice that say, I'm not going to amount to anything. I'm probably not going to get the job I'm putting in for. I'm going in for this promotion. They're probably not going to pick me. And I say, we've got to start over again. And the redraw for that has to be that you say, positive self-talk says, I know the answers to these questions. I can interview well. I'm going to get this job. You know who does that? The people that get promoted. You know who doesn't do that? The people that don't get promoted. I'm not saying you can predict things. I'm saying that your attitude about how you see future opportunities that you're facing is a big driver towards your success. One of my clinical friends is a guy named Dr. Brian Allman, A-L-M like Mary, A-N like Nancy, A-L-M-A-N. Brian Allman's on YouTube. He's got a lot of cool videos for stress management. They're very short. They're almost always at the beach. He's in Carlsbad, California. Brian Allman says something which I think is very insightful. Successful people have one foot in the present and 1 foot in the future. Successful people have 1 foot in the present and 1 foot in the future. Miserable people, unsuccessful, unhappy people, sad people, angry people have 1 foot in the present, the other foot stuck in the past. You may know people like this who are dwelling in the past, and that we cannot change that, and that causes them a tremendous stress because things have not worked out for them in the past, and they use that as a predictor of the future. Brian Allman says successful, happy, moving forward people have 1 foot in the present, the other foot in the future. Doesn't mean we don't learn from the past. Doesn't mean we don't think about or cherish or remember the past. But the idea of being stuck in the past not helpful. So Siddhartha is the founder of Indian Buddhism. He said, let us be thankful for if we didn't learn a lot today, at least we learned a little. And if we didn't learn a little, at least we didn't get sick. And if we got sick, at least we didn't die. So let us be thankful. I like a little sarcasm in my Buddhist there. So that kind of makes me laugh when I look at this piece here. So think of the things in your life around you that are positive and pleasant and that remind you of things and people that are positive and pleasant. We'll talk about toxic relationships. Friendships that you have that aren't really friendships. They're more like colleagueships. People in your life that are family members or relatives that you feel you have to hang out with even though they make you miserable. We want to change those things because they cause stress. People that you work with in your professional life that you have to do business with, that you have to engage with can cause you stress. How do you work on those relationships so those people don't impact you in a negative way? Think of this Buddhist sort of rock garden, Zen garden that we see from Japan. And think about how they think of stress management differently in Japan than we do here by using one example, which is very interesting and unique, which is the cops. In law enforcement, the police come to work and they go through something called roll call or lineup or muster or whatever it is. And in that process, they sit and talk with their bosses about crooks and cops and accidents and incidents and people are looking for and folks they want to arrest and what happened last night and things like that. And then those folks go out into the field and they work 10-hour day, 8-hour day, 12-hour day, oftentimes by themselves, and they go through a whole police shift. And then they come back to the station, they change out of their uniforms and they go home. And they take whatever they have absorbed during that 8 or 10 or 12 hours, death, suicide, injury, angry people, people wanting to harm them, people harming other people, injuries to children, things like that. They absorb that and they go home. The average cop has exposure to 800 types of trauma throughout his or her career. Most people have less than 5 in their lives. And mostly that's a death of a relative or someone that's very close to them. In Japan, they do 2 lineups. In Japan, they come back after work and they say, let's talk about what happened. Let's talk about what you went to. Let's talk about what you were exposed to. Let's talk about those events. Imagine we did that in the United States. We brought cops back into the station and said, here's how, let's talk about what you went through. And if it's nothing, see you tomorrow. And if it's something, let's talk about it. Let's debrief and share as a group what our experiences were. You know who does that really well? Firefighters. You know who has a healthier culture when it comes to stress as opposed to cops versus firefighters? Firefighters. Why? First off, they exercise more, which we'll talk about. Second, they're more holistic in how they share what happened as a group. Firefighters do things in teams. They eat in teams, they work out in teams, they sleep in teams. You know what I mean? Same building, right? And their success in mental health is that they debrief each other as a group, whereas cops go home and sit and oftentimes sit and drink. Cops have a high suicide rate, higher than, and this is an interesting part, than the national average because they kill themselves more than they are killed at work, which is really ironic. More cops kill themselves every year, 150 to 180 than are killed in the line of duty, which is really sad, right? So think of a profession that is more dangerous to themselves personally than what happens when they do their things out in the field. And that's something we need to address in this country. We look at certain higher risk professions where there's not that kind of wellness. We have an opportunity talking here today about wellness, about those things can be good for you personally and professionally. So Brian Allman, 1 foot in the present, 1 foot in the future. Pleasure versus happiness. What are we seeking? Pleasure is something that you buy or something that shows up from Amazon, or a great meal that you had, or a nice conversation with somebody, but maybe it doesn't last, right? And then you go back to feeling uncomfortable or miserable or depressed or whatever it happens to be, whereas happiness is a life goal. How can I be happy with the things that I experience? And one of the things that we do for happiness is to take pleasure in the little moments. Part of kind of the Zen philosophy is to take pleasure in the little moments, even if they seem brief. I'm sitting in traffic. It's horrible. I'm trying to get to work. Okay, what's good about it? I have a cup of coffee. I'm heading to a job I'm going to be paid for. I have some interesting projects to work on today. Great song on the radio. I have satellite radio. I can listen to whatever I want. I'm by myself. It's peaceful. Okay. Yes, it's traffic, but what's the good part? You're washing dishes at your house. One of my least favorite activities, right? Probably vacuuming would be number 1 and then dishes number 2. What's good about washing the dishes? Well, I'm doing it inside my home, which I own. I'm doing it as a result of a nice meal I had with people that I care about. The water is soapy and warm and it makes nice bubbles, and pretty soon I put the dishes away and I go back to doing what I want to do. You can take the Zen moment, the little moment, out of a lot of things in life which seem pretty horrible at the time. The death of your saintly grandmother is not a good thing, but you say, what's good about it? Well, she's no longer in pain. People loved her. She has passed on from the illness that she has that was causing her a lot of stress. She's in a different place, right? There's lots of ways to look at things, but oftentimes people that are under a lot of stress do not see any sense of what is good in the particular moment that they're in. Third piece, positive self-talk. Of all the voices that you hear throughout the day, and if you hear more than one voice, I'll talk to you about a clinical referral. But if all the voices that you hear in one day, the one that you listen to the most is your own. And so if you are full of negative self-talk, it is a huge stressor. You're stupid, you're fat, you're lazy, you're never going to amount to anything, you're not going to be successful, you're not going to find anyone to love, no one loves you. These are the things that people say is negative self-talk, and it's really damaging. It's really toxic. Part of stress management for us is, I will be successful. I will figure this out. I'm going to do better in this tomorrow. I'm going to get a handle on this particular situation. I feel positive about this. I feel energized about that. And one of the ways that you have good positive self-talk is go on a news diet. A news diet, and we're talking social media as well, is to stop looking at bad stuff. I'm a workplace violence prevention guy. People send me stories. I've been doing that subject since '92. I've been in threat management and threat assessment since '92. I wrote the first book in the country on this issue. People inundate me with every shooting and bad thing that ever happened. All my colleagues, people send me stuff all the time. It's depressing. So I try to go on a news diet and say, I'm not going to focus on all the horrible stuff that happened in Buffalo or in Texas or in the Ukraine. I'm going to try to focus on stuff that makes me happy, because I can't change the whole world, but I can change what inputs I bring in. You ever get depressed after looking at social media, looking at stuff on Twitter and Facebook? You ever get depressed after watching the news? Yeah, lots of folks do. Part of positive self-talk and part of feeling better about the world in terms of your own personal stress is limit the inputs that you take in. We'll talk about daily breath-based relaxation. 2 minutes is fine. 5 minutes is good. 10 minutes would be awesome. 20 minutes, you're my hero. Are you doing what you really want to do in your life? I'm not a big Tony Robbins guy, but what he says is actually true. What you're doing in your life is what you actually want to do. And so what he means is, if you say, I want to go to the gym, you drive over to the gym and start working out at the gym. If you say to yourself, I want to go back to school, but you never actually drive to the school or never actually log on to the college or university and start taking classes, you're not doing what you really want to do. Look at those things in your life and say, I want to do some things different. What is the first step? Can small changes make a big difference? Yes. Don't take your mountain bike off of the hooks in the garage, dust it off, and try to ride 10 miles. Take your mountain bike off the hooks in the garage, fill up the tires, ride around the block. Next day, go around the block twice, etc. Little changes make big differences. So stress. And I forgot the poll questions, Amanda, but that's okay. Stress.
You want to do
An everyday fact of life? Yes. A necessary stimulus? Yes. If we didn't have stress, we would perish as a population because we need stimulus. Is it unavoidable? Yes. Is it unmanageable? No. We can definitely manage it. There was a biodome, I think it was in Tucson, Arizona, right around there. And they put these bionauts, these folks in there to live with the trees and the plants and the birds and the water. And they put this biodome together to say, can men and women live together in this artificial environment, but create enough water and food and things to survive? And what they found out was the trees kept dying. And they couldn't figure out whether the trees had moisture and water and fertilizer, and they were getting lots of sunlight, and they kept dying. They put these trees in there and they would die. What they didn't factor in is inside the biodome, there was not a stressor, which exists in the real world, which is wind. Wind moves the trees, and as the trees move in the wind, they develop deeper roots. No wind inside, no stress, they didn't make it. Now, too much stress, bad for us, certainly. But when we look at a little bit of stress as a motivator, a little bit of stress as a shift out of our comfort zone, a little bit of stress as a way to initiate positive change for us, it's useful. Too much, not good for you. So negative stress is called distress. Positive stress is called eustress. So negative stress, distressful situations. Positive stress, which is called eustress, right? Now, positive stress and eustress and distress, eustress versus distress, is in the eye of the beholder. Somebody jumps out from behind the couch and yells, happy birthday. That's positive stress, right? A surprise party. Somebody jumps out from behind the couch and says, I'm here to burglarize your house. That's negative stress, right? But it's in the eyes of the beholder. You may like scary movies or roller coasters. I'm not a fan of those. Some of you are zip liners or parasailers. I'm not a fan of that particularly. I don't like heights. I'm not even happy about being this tall, okay? So when you look at stress, what stresses you does not stress me and vice versa. I have stood in front of total strangers and spoke for a living since 1987. I have talked in front of groups as high as 3,000 and as small as 2. And when I think about the natural human condition to be stressed out and afraid and distressed about giving a speech in front of somebody at church or at work or some social or community group that you have to speak to, it's one of the highest stressors that we have. People would rather be in the casket at the funeral than give the eulogy at the funeral. It's odd, right? But for me, talking to strangers at a microphone at a dais and things like that is not a stressful experience. It's a common experience for me. So it's all about context, right? What stresses you doesn't stress me. That's why it's hard for me to make universal judgments about your life. All I can give you is the tools that tend to work for everybody, including me. So stress is a biological reaction, a cognitive reaction, an emotional reaction. Biological, it's about hormones, adrenaline, cortisol, which makes people fat. Cortisol is a potbelly hormone, right? Lots of cortisol, lots of stress tend to have potbelly. It's a cognitive stressor, which says that I can't think. I've seen people can't find 911 on their phone in an emergency. I've seen people that can't remember their address in an emergency to tell the dispatcher. We can't think very well under stress. And then the last one, it's an emotional reaction. I can make you cry by things I show you on the screen. I can make you happy with a song that we play. I can make you sad with a song that I play. We can show you photographs or visual imagery that gets you excited, gets you motivated, gets you angry, gets you fearful, gets you sad, makes you happy. Stress is related to feelings. All these things, biology, cognitive, and emotional, are contextual, meaning it is different for everybody. Okay, think about where stress affects you. For me, my neck right under my hairline is where I get my tension headaches. I got a couple trigger points. I've been a weightlifter and a marathon runner and a martial artist. So I have all kinds of aches and pains. I had hip replacements. I'm pretty beat up in my low back, my hip, my shoulder blades. That's where I get most of my stress. My chiropractor loves stressing me because it makes me visit him more. How about your stomach? Really common these days to see folks with irritable bowel and Crohn's and colitis and diarrhea and constipation. Nervous stomach. Really common to see teeth grinding in people that are feeling a lot of stress. And maybe not teeth grinding for you, but maybe what I do, which is teeth clenching. So when I sleep, my jaw is sore from clenching my teeth, not grinding my teeth. Yes, I know you can buy some really cool, expensive $300 mouth guards. I just throw those on the floor when I'm sleepy so my dog has something to chew on. Headaches, muscle aches. How about energy level is affected by stress, where you say, I just don't feel like doing anything. I just want to come home and sit. And we'll talk about that in a second. How about your interactions with people? Toxic people in your life personally and professionally. Toxic relatives, toxic coworkers, toxic clients, toxic customers that you have to deal with can stress you. And doing knowledge work all day long as part of your job, where you just sit at a computer and you type and think and write and create, is tiring, right? And you say, if I had a physical job where I was out, working in a factory or working outside doing landscaping or something, it's just as tiring to do a intellectual job where you're just sitting all day because you have to use brain power, and it's tiring to do that as well. So this device here is called the magic chair. People sit in the magic chair under stress and they just zone out. The magic chair, and I'm here to tell you from experience, can be a divorce maker. The magic chair is where we sit and go, leave me alone, I just want to chill, I had a hard day. So your family or your spouse or partner comes over, your kids, and you go, don't bug me, I just want to chill. And you eat your meals in the magic chair. We have a couple of cocktails in the magic chair. We fall asleep in the magic chair. It's easy to stay in the magic chair. The magic chair becomes one of those things where you go, don't bug me, I just want to sit and chill. And pretty soon people start to take you literally and they stop bothering you, period. And they move the house and leave you in the magic chair. I've seen this many times with people that come home and zone out. And they don't engage, and they don't engage with their kids or their partner or their spouse or their dogs or cats. They don't engage. They sit in the magic chair. The antidote to the magic chair is to get up and engage with folks. The antidote to the magic chair is to get up and go to dinner. The antidote to the magic chair is to get up and go walk your dog or go sit with your spouse or partner and talk about your day. That is the antidote to the magic chair. Now, I can sit in the magic chair for 12 hours on football Sunday, but I don't use the magic chair as a distancing tool, as a lot of people do when they're under stress. They sit in the magic chair. Take my warning. So look at the personal and professional stress makers here. This is a professional list here. Your workload, your schedule, the hours you work, 10, 8, 10, 12 hours a day, working from home, working part-time at work and back at home again, working full-time back in your office, interactions, clients, customers, taxpayers, visitors, vendors, harassment or bullying from bosses or coworkers or even clients, feeling burnt out and demotivated, making poor decisions as a result of stress. How about the environment that you're in? Too hot, too cold, too noisy, doesn't feel safe, doesn't feel peaceful, doesn't feel quiet at work. Emails, calls, meetings, probably the number one stressors for everybody. And then look at the last one. Can't say no. Can't say no. There was a book written in the 70s called When I Say No, I Feel Guilty. And what that guy said, I think his name was Manuel Smith. He's a psychologist. And what he said is, stop feeling guilty when you say no. It's a stressor, right? When you go, I really don't want to get involved in this committee. I really don't want to do this thing for my kid's school. I just don't want to. But now that I've committed, I have to do it. Start saying no more often to stuff that you know you don't want to do. It helps. Personal stressors, family, in-laws, spouse, partner, kids, conflicts with all those people. Money and bills, unanticipated home repairs. Just put a new dishwasher in my house. There's $1,000, right? Illness, pain, illness and pain in people that you love and care about, your parents, grandparents, things like that. Think of the toxic friendships that you are exposed to where someone calls and you go, I don't want to talk to that person. When caller ID comes up and you don't want to speak to that person because they're not a real friend, right? They're either been horrible to you or they're actually more of a colleague than a friend. Start to limit or filter out those people in your life. The result of a lot of these things that we have seen, especially in the pandemic, is depression. Anger outward is anger. Anger inward is depression. And we see a lot of people on medications now having depressed feelings, feeling suicidal, especially our kids coming out of the pandemic with the lack of socialization in schools. It's a real issue. The opiate use in this country is beyond dramatically tragic. We use 150, 175 people a day to opiate overdose. People are taking opiates not for necessarily just pain relief, but to sort of escape what's going on in their lives. So when you think about the personal and professional stressors you have, what's highest on your list personally? What's highest on your list professionally? Those are the issues we want you to address. So let's talk about something that can be very useful for employees that have this benefit, this feature at their work site, which is called the EAP or Employee Assistance Program. I'm a big fan of EAP, been myself personally, got some PTSD stuff, which I'm still working on, been useful for me. EAP is typically a service that is an outside clinical support service for employees. And look at all the things that they cover. Everything here from pet loss to gambling addictions, financial problems, blended families, stepchildren, sick kids, Alzheimer's in your parents, whatever it happens to be, these things can be addressed. And these are very caring professionals that within 3 to 5 sessions, which is what you typically get in EAP, they can get you on a path back to supported health. And they can refer you to other specialists that focus on certain specific areas, substance abuse, things like that, or they can continue a working relationship with you long after the free sessions have gone on, and you pay on a graduated scale based on what you can afford. Why don't employees do it? There's a stigma, especially for men. I work with a lot of macho career people, public works, cops, firefighters, male and female, that don't want to reach out for help because they think there's a stigma. A lot of people feel that their bosses or peers are going to find out about their using EAP. You can get EAP service without getting permission. You can go to your intranet and look under your HR benefits, and typically they'll have EAP provider there. Oftentimes we see EAP posters in break rooms and things like that says here's an 800 number, or here's a local number that you can use. There are no reports that follow you. They're not going to take you out of the field and put you on a desk job or take you out of your typical work and make you go count the pencils. That's that kind of rubber gun squad thing that people are fearful of. They're going to change my job. A lot of people don't know that EAP exists in their organizations, and also they've been told by somebody that it's not confidential. It is confidential. So I'm telling you that one resource for you might be in stress management employee assistance program. There are other ones, but this is one that your employer may provide to you for free, 3 to 5 sessions at no cost. You can take your family, you can go with your kids or spouse or partner. A lot of times people have used EAP to extreme benefit. So maybe you don't want to go to EAP. Maybe you have other thoughts. Well, you can get a clinical referral for mental health services from your medical plan, from your primary care physician or your healthcare plan. So oftentimes on the back of your medical card, it'll give you a mental health services telephone number. Referral from a friend who's using a clinician he or she trusts. pastoral counseling at your church or synagogue, some place like that where you can find pastoral counseling. That's someone who's trained to do that. Can we do online therapy, Skype, Zoom, things like that? Yeah, it works. There's a good track record for people using telemedicine, teletherapy. Now that's especially Zoom, places like that exist. And then think of all the support groups that exist for you. Could be parents that have lost children, cancer survivors, people that are widows, people that are dealing with a certain type of disease where there are support groups for you. And obviously the most common support group is Alcoholics Anonymous. So there's lots of opportunities these days to even meet by Zoom. And they do AA meetings by Zoom now. Lots of opportunities for you to meet with support groups that could help with the specific stressor that you are facing. Okay, so we talked for the first half about what stress is and what it does to you, where it affects you, right, internally and externally, muscle pain, headaches, tension headaches, things like that. Excuse me. We also talked about what it does in terms of the overall impact on your body. It's not good for your heart. It's not good for your brain. It's not good for your mood. It's not good for your sense of the future. Stress can be really, really damaging, especially over a long span of time that we typically are exposed to stressful people and situations. So what I have come up with is this acronym, BREADS, and I use the word cure in quotes because it's not perfect, but it's really useful. Breathing, relaxation, exercise, attitude, diet, and sleep. Are these things interrelated? They are. Are these things interconnected? They are. Does your attitude affect your sleep? It does. Does your exercise connect to your diet? It does. If you eat better, do you sleep better? You do. If you exercise before a reasonable amount of time before you go to sleep, does it help your sleep? It does. Now let's look at each of these in detail. I'll break them all down. Breathing. This is the window to stress management, which is the more stressful the situation is, the slower and deeper you need to breathe. Angry telephone calls, angry clients, angry spouse, angry whoever. Slow and deep. When you breathe short and shallow, you get into that fight or flight modality. Your blood pressure goes up, your pulse rate goes up. You also get tunnel vision and tunnel hearing, meaning you don't hear things and you don't see things. You ever had that sense that people say, I just blacked out for a second, I saw red, I didn't know what to say or do? That's that freezing that comes sometimes when we are in that high pulse rate, high blood pressure, high respiration area. You don't have to breathe like a yogi. You just have to slow down your breathing, oxygenate your body, keep your head in the game, say or do the right thing by breathing slow and deep. Practice it with me, practice it on the phone, practice it driving home. Relaxation, 10 minutes, once a day, twice a day would be awesome. 1 20-minute session would be really good. Start at 1 minute, go to 5 minutes, try to build up and say, can I sit someplace quiet? Can I play a YouTube video from John Kabat-Zinn, Z-I-N-N? Can I play a YouTube video from Headspace? Can I play a YouTube video that's just relaxing music for 10 minutes, for 2 minutes, for 5 minutes, and just take time to do one thing, breathe. In that breathing exercise, you're not changing your breathing, you're not slowing it down or speeding it up, you're not altering it in any way, you're just focusing on your breath. You're trying to calm, every time you do it, the monkey mind. Excuse me, every time you do it, you're trying to get the monkey mind to go away and play somewhere else. You're trying to get the monkey mind about emails, texts, and meetings and phone calls to go away. All you're trying to do is to reset, reboot that mechanism, which is your brain under stress, briefly. And what you find out, and this has been my experience with everybody I've ever talked to about it, is once you start doing it and you develop the habit, it becomes something that you want to do. Exercise 3 to 5 times a week, 30 minutes, best one, typically walking. I have a treadmill. I use that when the weather's roasting hot out here where I live in the Ozarks or it's snowing. I like to hike with my dogs. I got 6. It's fun to bring them. Find somebody that you can go with and you make that a habit as well. Attitude, relentlessly positive. Stop saying this is horrible, it's going to be horrible. Stop predicting or projecting what's going to happen. Say, I'm going to figure this out. I've got it. This is going to work out okay. Successful people, relentlessly positive, meaning I don't dwell on what's not going to work for me, what's going to be bad. I don't project the future. I stay positive. Now, I've lived an interesting life. When I see a big pile of horse poop, I don't dig through there and go, there must be a pony in here somewhere. I'm not that kind of person. I'm not pie in the sky. But relentlessly positive has been a significant dramatic change for me in terms of how I see the world. Diet, careful on the feel-good foods, manage your blood sugar throughout the day. Typically protein in the morning, not so much on the carbs. Careful with the feel-good foods. Try to have 1 or 2 cheat days, not 5 cheat days and 2 good days. And then sleep, let's talk about it. We are a sleep deprived culture. It's hard to get the 7 hours that seems to be the minimum that most doctors who study this stuff recommend. 8 hours would be a luxury, but people are getting by on 4 and 5 all the time, and it starts to catch up to them. Let's talk about each of these in detail, and then we'll start to wrap up. Think about what you may heard about for breathing. Some people call it yoga breathing. Some people mindfulness meditation breathing. Some people have called it self-hypnosis. Some people call it guided imagery, where you look at relaxing the top of your head down to your toes. Focused relaxation, where you focus on what's called a private getaway place, some place that you know that you can go to in your head that's peaceful and safe and comforting. You've been there, or it doesn't exist, or it does exist, but nothing bad's ever happened there, and it's only a positive place. Think of those pauses that happen in your breathing. You inhale, there's a little pause, and then you transition to the exhale. Then at the bottom of your exhale, there's a teeny pause, microsecond pause, and then you transition back to the next inhale. Sometimes when you're just sitting for 5 minutes or 2 minutes or 10 minutes, just focus on the pauses. Inhale, little teeny pause. Exhale, little teeny pause. Next inhale, little teeny pause. Just focus on the pauses. Some people count their breaths, and they try to get to, 1,000 or whatever it is. They count from 100 back to 1 and from 1 back up to 100. They find some time has gone by. They've rebooted the mechanism. They've dropped their pulse rate, their blood pressure. They've changed their body chemistry as a stress management tool. 10 minutes a day, safe, comfortable, quiet. Sometimes I sit in my car with the air conditioner on for a couple of minutes and do it. If the weather's, too hot, sometimes I'll find a break room or someplace where no one comes in. I'll use an empty office. Sometimes I do it when I'm in my car after I come out of lunch. Sometimes I do it before I leave for work. Sometimes I do it when I come home from work. Sometimes I do it before I fall asleep, and I use it as a way to fall asleep. I start at the top of my head and work down and relax every part of my body down to my toes. Okay, 10 minutes would be awesome. 20 minutes would be really great. 2 minutes, even better, just to start and say, this is how it feels. I'll give you an example of a story I heard which broke my heart. I was at a meditation seminar for beginning meditators, and it was at a city hall, and it was all city employees when I was in San Diego. And the woman who was running the program said, I just want to spend one moment, let's spend 1 minute, 60 seconds, just close your eyes and just think about nothing for 60 seconds. I don't want you to have to think about your kids or your bills or your work or anything, your boss. Just think about nothing for a minute. So we closed our eyes, and for a minute, and almost at the end of the minute, we heard somebody start crying. And the woman brought us back after a minute, and she looked around. There was a woman kind of close to her who was sobbing. And the lady said, what's the matter? And she said, no one ever gave me permission to just take care of myself. Think about how sad that is, that sometimes you are so tied up in the results and activities of other people, family, work, colleagues, bosses, customers, whoever, that you don't think about yourself. You can have all the money in the world like Steve Jobs, right? He was a billionaire when he died. But he died because he didn't take care of his cancer, because he didn't take care of his health. When you think about the most important thing in your life, you can say, I love my kids. Me too, right? Your spouse, your partner, whoever. Me too, right? Your pets, your job, your family. Me too, right? But the most important thing in your life is your health. And the driver for your health is that ability to focus on your stress. And the best ability to do that, the best tool for that, is once a day, if you can, find a place to relax, reboot the mechanism. Lower blood pressure, lower pulse rate, lower metabolism, better control of oxygen and carbon monoxide leaving your body, right? Carbon dioxide, and also boosting your immune system, stimulate your anti-aging functions, fighting off disease. Now, breathing meditation, breathing relaxation exercise is not a cure for cancer, obviously, but it is a way to start to look at your whole body health, from your brain, your lungs, your cardio, everything, whole body health, breathing. Couple things. Exercise. Walking tends to be the best, 3 to 5 times a week with somebody that you care about, with your dog even better if you have one. 30 minutes tends to be kind of the sweet spot. I have one of those Fitbit counters. I try to get 10,000 steps. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. 45 minutes tends to be sort of the cut line for too much exercise. After that, it tends to be less beneficial unless you're training for something, a race or something like that you want to do. 30 minutes tends to be kind of the sweet spot. Attitude. Relentlessly positive. The Zen moment. Focus on what is good, no matter how small or brief it seems to be in this particular situation. Stuck in traffic, we already talked about, there's some small benefits there, right? Stop the negative self-talk. It is the most destructive thing you can do for your attitude, is to criticize yourself. Think of all the people in the world that want to do it for you anyway, right? Negative self-talk is one thing that you can say. Going on a news diet, stopping exposing myself to stuff like this, and talking positively about situations that I'm facing is a huge stress management tool. Diet. Look at those bagels that we love to eat. 70 carbs, right? Early in the morning, that's kind of a lot. Careful with the coffee. Some people pounding 3 or 4 of the big Starbucks every day. Can't figure out why they can't sleep. 5 to 6 good days, 1 to 2 cheat days. Try to eat carefully when it comes to caffeine, alcohol, fats, and sugars. If you have exercise and sleep thrown into these things with diet, you're going to start to eat better because you realize that they affect each other. Diet affects sleep, sleep affects diet, sleep affects exercise. So let's talk about sleep. Program yourself to sleep in 90-minute cycles. So we get up at the end of a 90-minute cycle. Have you ever woken up groggy after 8 hours of sleep and felt kind of crappy? You ever woken up pretty refreshed after only 4 hours of sleep? Well, in the 4 hour sleep, you woke up at the end of a 90-minute cycle. We tend to sleep deep and heavy, and then we get lighter, and then we go back to deep and heavy throughout this 90-minute process. At the end of 90 minutes, we tend to come back to a lighter level of sleep, and then we drop back into the next 90-minute cycle and go back into deeper sleep. If you can program your time that you have to get up, and at the end of a 90-minute cycle, you tend to feel better refreshed. So let's say you go to bed 11, 12:30, 2, 3:30, 5, 6:30. Getting up at 6:30 as opposed to getting up at 7 or 6 may have a big difference on how you feel at the end of this 90-minute cycle. Pre-sleep rituals: shower, boring book, no phone, right? 20 minutes before you go to sleep, no exposure to the blue light which the phone gives you, right? No exposure to tablets, blue light, stuff like that. Use the bedroom for what it was designed for, not for arguing with your spouse or partner or arguing with your kids. It should be a peaceful, safe, comfortable place. White noise, fans, wave machines, whatever it is, cool, dark, cover up all the little blue lights in your house, not the smoke alarm, but everything else, right? Careful with pills, careful with especially Ambien. That has some significant issues, but sometimes we can have problems with people taking too much of over-the-counter sleep medications as well. Don't worry about occasional insomnia, but focus on what is called better sleep hygiene. Think about the technology that you're exposed to. Is it making you happy or unhappy? Too much time on your phone, too much Facebook, too much Twitter. Is it making you happy or unhappy? When can you go on a news diet? When can you go on a social media diet? Can you turn your phone off and leave it in another room so it's easier for you to sleep? That's a big challenge for lots of folks. A couple of apps I like a lot. Headspace, run by Andy Puddicombe. He's a British guy. He was a Buddhist monk. He went to Tibet after he watched his sister get run over by a car at a party when he was in college. It changed his life, obviously dramatically in a negative way. So he said, I'm going to go to Tibet and become a Buddhist monk. That's what he did. He came back and started Headspace. Very pleasant guy, easy to listen to. Headspace is the most popular mindfulness meditation app out there. And the second one is a guy that I know, Dan Harris. He was with ABC News. He was the weekend correspondent for ABC News, and he ran Nightline for years. Dan Harris wrote a book called 10% Happier, and he has a website and an app called 10% Happier, all about mindfulness meditation. And what he said was, when I am meditating, and I know that I can get some value from this, even if it advances my life, even if it improves my life 10%, it's good for me. It's valuable for me. Both of those can be really good. John Kabat-Zinn, Z-I-N-N, on John, Jon, K-A-B-O-T, John Kabat-Zinn on YouTube. Tons of guided meditation, guided relaxation exercises as well. All of YouTube is filled with that stuff, but those are the ones I typically like the best: Headspace, 10% Happier, and John Kabat-Zinn. So let's talk a little anger. It's easy to get angry because when we get our buttons pushed by people who say things about us or to us or stimulate our argument, side, it's easy to respond in kind. And the biggest tool for me for stress management for anger is the ability to pause before you answer. The brain is so fast. We do things in microseconds, right? We can make decisions in microseconds. We're intuitive on stuff. Just taking 1 or 2 seconds before you answer somebody when you're upset is a huge amount of time in brain measurement. Just taking a couple seconds before you answer is a huge amount to let your brain come back to normal. When we see people who cannot do this, they do and say things they regret to their spouse, to their kids, to their boss, to their coworkers, it's not good. And they oftentimes regret what they have done. But that sense of being able to just say, I'm going to wait a couple of seconds before I answer is a huge benefit in terms of anger. Now, I call it anger mastery because I don't think management's the right tool. Management means the right word. Management means stuff it down, pack it in. Mastery means control. We talked about the value of controlling your breathing. Deep, slow breaths. Keep your head oxygenated, your brain oxygenated. Get yourself out of that fight or flight modality. Lower your voice. Agree to disagree. Stop your desire to be right. And think about the consequences of anger before you do those things. There's lots of people who end up in jail for road rage or assaults or other things. They don't normally do that, but they just, quote, saw red or blacked out or whatever it wants to be that they use as an excuse, and they cannot manage their emotions to the degree where they can master their anger. Recognize your hot buttons. Is it your weight or your appearance or whatever it is that people around you can intentionally or unintentionally push your hot buttons? And the last one, it's okay to walk out of certain situations. It's okay to say, we'll talk later. It's okay to hang up the phone and say, I don't have anything else to say. I've got to go, and hang up the phone before you say or do things that you regret. I do lots of anger mastery counseling for people, and what I typically find for them is they wish they hadn't done it, but it's too late when they come to that realization. They don't recognize it in time. Recognize your hot buttons. Recognize that you have some choices. Recognize that you can do some of the things on the screen here as anger mastery. Okay, 3 things that help a lot in looking at traumas that people are exposed to: time, talking, and thought stopping. Time passing blurs the intensity of even the most horrific incident. I can think about the most horrible things that I've been exposed to. They're much less disturbing to think about now than they were the 2 weeks after they happen, obviously, right? Time blurs the intensity. And the second part is equally important, which is talking with people who care about you about what happened. Not therapy, just conversation. Just saying, I want to talk to somebody, best friend, spouse, partner, somebody I care about, good friend, who I can say, this is what's happening, I'm having a struggle with it. And all they need to say is, I hear you, sounds rough, let's talk about it. I think one of the most important things you do in your life in terms of the T's is having a best friend. I get sad when people don't have best friends. I'm not talking about Facebook friends. I'm talking about people that they deal with. And when you look at the passage of time and talking with somebody about it can blur the intensity of the issue that you face. I'm not talking about therapy. You can do that as well. But just talking with people who care about you. The last one, thought stopping. We can get stuck in ruminating, getting stuck on conversations. Thought stopping is your ability to say, I'm not going to think about that. I'm actually going to have a literal stop sign in my head that reminds me not to continue there. I'm not going to get stuck ruminating or continuing to think about that stuff. Change your modality. Get out of bed. Go do something different. Stop getting stuck in that ruminating, going over the past kind of a situation. Time talking and thought stopping is our best closure tools, especially for traumatic events that we have. Therapy helps, certainly, but time talking and thought stoppings are things that you can do without that as necessary. Okay, workplace wellness. Before we wrap up, think about the things that you may be able to do if you are in a supervisory or management position in your organization. Think of some of the things that you may ask for that can be part of wellness in your organization. Career health days, we bring in health professionals, they measure stuff on us, blood pressure, cholesterol, things like that. Gym memberships and yoga and nap rooms, job sharing, telecommuting, flex time, quitting smoking. About 25% of the population still smokes. Wellness programs, sabbaticals, no emails before or after dark. I like that one myself. So think about starting at the top of your head and going to your toes. That's head to toe muscle relaxation. Think about breathing, focusing on those turning points, that transition from inhale, little pause, to the exhale. Those are the turning points, or the pauses. Think about a private getaway place that you associate with peacefulness. Think about a color that you can associate that you can use for mindfulness meditation. Think about touching your thumb and first finger together, or your thumb and any other finger as kind of a gesture. Choose a word that you attach to mindfulness and use that as something that you can sit quietly 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and just focus on that. Some people use a mantra. Some people, I use the word pax, which is the Latin word for peace. Think about all these tools as something you can do with a little background music playing in the background, which is like YouTube stuff, music that you like that's non-lyrical that you can listen to that's quiet and pleasant. Think about some guided meditation stuff that's on YouTube as well. John Kabat-Zinn, 10% Happier, Headspace. So look at the world that we're in, find something beautiful in it, find a fractal that you like, get some fish, watch those folks, right, as they cruise around the tank. Lots of things that we can do for the personal and professional stressors that we face, but it starts with you. So Amanda, back over to you. Happy to take any questions in the short time we have.
Thank you. We actually haven't had any questions yet, but of course we can, always get some later on. So I just want to thank everybody for attending today's webinar presented by Heffernan. We will send information by email with instructions on how to access a copy of the presentation on our website. Thank you, Dr. Albrecht, for your time and expertise today. We hope
Thanks,
all the
Amanda. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. We hope everybody found today's webinar to be valuable, and we hope that everybody will join us on July 19th for the exempt and non-exempt employees webinar. Thank you, everyone. Have a safe day.